A thunderous roar shattered the stillness of the forest, followed by mocking laughter and the deep rumble of motorcycle engines. The helpless creature cowered in the dirt, eyes wide with panic, muscles trembling with fear. But the torment didn't stop. Behind a curtain of trees, hidden in the shadows of the pines, a pair of small eyes locked on the scene unfolding in the clearing. And what they witnessed was something no child should ever have to see. Nestled between towering cliffs and dense woods, the remote mountain town of Ridgepine was a quiet place, forgotten by time. It had once been a logging town, but after the mills shut down, most of the families left, leaving behind just a few dozen people who preferred solitude over noise. But Ridgepine had something the rest of the world had long since lost: untouched wilderness. Deep, sprawling forests stretched beyond the horizon, with hidden trails, trickling creeks, and wildlife that rarely encountered humans, until now. For weeks, townsfolk whispered of strange sounds in the woods: engine revs at midnight, distant howls from frightened animals, and once the unmistakable sound of gunfire. Some dismissed it. Others grew worried. But no one had done anything. Everyone knew who it was. A gang of bikers, outsiders who had taken to using the Ridgepine forest trails as their lawless domain. They called themselves the Bone Runners, and they didn't answer to anyone. Locals avoided them. The sheriff, a part-time deputy with bad knees and fewer resources, had long since stopped trying to chase them off. What started with beer cans littered along hiking paths had grown into something darker. That day, the Bone Runners had set up camp in a clearing just off one of the old Ranger Fire roads. The sound of engines echoed as they took turns riding in circles around something. Or someone. It was a bear. A young one. Barely past cubhood, the small brown bear was tied to a splintered tree stump with a rusted iron chain wrapped around its neck. Its fur was dirty and matted, smeared with mud and old food. Its snout had a scrape from where it had likely tried to pull free. One biker tossed a crushed soda can at the bear's head, laughing when it flinched. Another revved his bike right in front of the animal's face, causing it to rear back and let out a high-pitched, terrified growl. Less a roar, more a cry. Rays, the leader of the Bone Runners, stood at the center of the chaos. With a jagged scar over his cheek and tattoos crawling up his arms like dark ivy, he looked every bit the monster the town whispered about. He leaned against his idling bike, watching with sick amusement as the others continued their cruelty. "Feed him this," he barked, tossing a half-eaten burger to the ground near the bear. One of the bikers kicked it toward the animal. It didn't move. "Too scared to eat? Maybe it needs motivation," Rays sneered. Another rider picked up a branch and smacked it against the ground near the bear, making it flinch again. Phones were out. Someone was filming. One laughed. "We'll call it The Beast Tamed by Bone Runners. Might go viral." But behind the curtain of pines, someone else was watching. Lila, just 8 years old, crouched low behind a thicket, her heart pounding so loud she was sure they could hear it. Her hands gripped the bark of a low branch, her eyes locked on the bear. So small, so afraid. Her grandmother would be furious. She wasn't supposed to stray this far into the woods, but Lila had grown up here. The forest was her safe place. She'd often wandered with her father, a dedicated forest ranger who had spent his life protecting animals and teaching her everything he knew. Even after his death, killed during a wildfire rescue mission 2 years ago, Lila kept walking those same paths. It helped her feel close to him. Today had started as one of those walks, but then she'd heard something. Something wrong. At first it was just the echo of engines, then the roar. Not like a fierce growl from a predator, but more like a scream. She'd followed the sounds until she found herself crouched at the edge of the clearing. And now, she couldn't look away. The bear's eyes darted between the bikes and the men, panicked. Its breath came in shallow gulps. It tried to crawl backward, but the chain yanked it back. It let out another desperate sound, quieter this time. A sound Lila recognized instantly. It was the sound of something giving up. Tears welled in her eyes. The pain in her chest felt too big for her small frame to contain. but she didn't move. Couldn't. And then she stood up. Her father's words echoed in her mind, clear and sharp like sunlight through the canopy. Never be afraid to protect those who have no voice. Her knees trembled, but her jaw tightened. She took one step forward, then another. She brushed past the last branches and emerged into the clearing. Engines cut off. Laughter died. The bikers turned as one to stare at the small figure standing before them. Mud-stained boots, a red flannel shirt tied at the waist, and a look of quiet defiance in her wide brown eyes. Reyes tilted his head, puzzled. "Well, look what wandered in. Little Red Riding Hood." Another biker laughed nervously. "You lost, kid?" Lila said nothing. Her eyes never left the bear. Reyes stepped forward, now amused. "This is grown-up business. Go home to your dolls." Still, she didn't speak. She took another step closer to the bear. It looked up at her, its trembling slowing just a little. Reyes scowled. "You deaf or dumb, girl?" She finally spoke. "Let him go," Lila said, her voice soft but steady. "He didn't do anything to you." Silence fell again. Reyes's grin faded, and in the corner of the clearing, the young bear raised its head and looked at her, not with fear this time, but something else. None of it was true, but it didn't matter. The truth was buried under fear and speculation, stoked by a shaky phone video filmed from too far away and spread by a local blogger who hadn't even been there. In the footage, the cub's panicked yelps and the mother bear's roar were all the town needed to hear. The nuance, the cruelty, the chains, the fire, none of that made it into the headlines. Within hours, the mayor called for a wildlife control unit. "Public safety is our top priority," he declared on camera, as if that settled everything. "We're mobilizing aerial patrol. Any bear near human-populated areas will be relocated or, if necessary, put down." Lila watched the announcement from her living room, jaw clenched, tears streaming silently. The same bear who saved her life was now a target. The next morning, she stood at the front of the town council chambers, a microphone nearly too tall for her to reach. Behind her, her grandmother sat nervously clutching the wildlife camera. To the side, Sheriff Donnelly leaned against the wall, arms crossed but neutral. Several reporters had shown up, none from major outlets, just local radio and an online blog called Pine Watch. And in front of her, dozens of skeptical faces. Councilmen, shopkeepers, farmers, a few parents. People who'd known her since she was in diapers, and still looked at her like she was just a child telling fairy tales. "I'm not making this up," Lila said, steady but shaking. "They tied the cub up. The bikers. They laughed while it cried. Reyes tried to hurt me and the mother bear. She didn't attack me. She protected me. She saved me." Some council members exchanged glances. Councilwoman Brinker raised a brow. "That's a serious accusation, Lila. And you're saying this based on... what? Instinct?" "No," Lila snapped and pulled the camera trap footage onto the projector. The room fell silent as the video played. First came the sounds, the snarls, the shouts, the chain, then the moment of chaos. Fire bursting to life. The mother bear dragging Lila away gently by her coat. Even the room's loudest skeptic didn't speak when it ended. Still, one older man stood. "It's hard to believe," he said, "even with footage. Wild animals are unpredictable. Maybe it didn't hurt you this time, but what about next time?" "I was the only one who didn't hurt them," Lila replied. "What would you do if someone chained up your child?" A murmur ran through the room. But the shift wasn't enough. Not yet. Until Marcus stood up in the back. He looked rough, hands in his pockets, hoodie covered in ash stains, face pale. "I was there," he said, "and I recorded what really happened too." He pulled up a file from his phone and plugged it into the council's projector. Unedited biker footage. Reyes jeering. The cub whimpering. A fire blazing. Lila screaming, "Let him go!" The mother bear appearing, but not attacking. Just standing between danger and her cub. Marcus didn't say much, just let the truth play out. When it ended, no one clapped. No one needed to. Even Councilwoman Brinker folded her arms and looked away. But it was already too late. That afternoon, a black helicopter thundered over the tree line, its searchlights sweeping across the woods. Lila felt the vibration before she saw it. She ran. The forest floor blurred beneath her feet. She followed the trails her father had taught her, the moss-soft shortcuts, the stream that led to the old riverbank. She ignored the burning in her lungs, the stitch in her side. The chopper loomed above, circling. "They're here," she whispered. "They're going to hurt them." And then she saw them. Near the water's edge, the mother bear and her cub nestled in a patch of shaded grass. The cub was licking its paw. The mother looked up sharply. A crack rang out through the trees. Then another. 2 red-feathered tranquilizer darts struck the mother's shoulder. She groaned, stumbled. "No!" Lila screamed, running out from the trees. "Stop!" Rangers in green uniforms emerged from the brush, tranquilizer rifles aimed. But they froze as Lila threw herself in front of the bears, her arms outstretched, her voice shaking. "You can't do this!" The cub whimpered behind her. The mother bear swayed, disoriented but still awake. "Move aside, miss," one ranger warned. "This animal's been marked for removal." "She's not dangerous," Lila cried. "She saved me. She didn't attack anyone. She was trying to protect her baby. You don't have to kill her. Please, look at the footage." Reporters began arriving, breathless and clicking cameras. One woman from Pine Watch was live-streaming on her phone. Lila saw it and turned toward the lens. And something inside her rose up, something bigger than fear. We're always told that wild animals are monsters. But what if we're the monsters? What if we're the ones who chain their children, light their homes on fire, and call it justice? This mother bear saved my life. She could have let me burn. She didn't. But we're going to kill her. For what? For surviving? For loving her cub the way we love our families? Please, don't do this. Be better than the people who hurt them first. Her voice cracked, and the world watched. The stream went viral within minutes. The governor's office called the mayor directly. Orders came down the chain. "Stand down." The ranger with the tranquilizer lowered his gun. The other muttered into his radio, confirming the order. A wildlife vet arrived by helicopter soon after, administering a reversal drug to the mother bear. Slowly, she blinked back to awareness. She didn't growl, didn't run. She just looked at Lila with eyes dark and knowing. In the days that followed, everything changed. The bears were safely relocated. Not killed, but transferred to a sprawling wildlife sanctuary just north of the national park. It wasn't a zoo. It was land, trees, rivers, freedom, and Lila. She was given a special pass, visitor privileges, education ambassador, even a scholarship from the Sanctuary Foundation. Marcus testified in court against Reyes, who was caught trying to flee the state in a stolen car and now faced charges for animal cruelty, arson, reckless endangerment, and assault of a minor. The headlines shifted. Girl saves bear from death sentence. Viral footage sparks change in wildlife policy. Final scene. It was spring now. The sanctuary's trees were in bloom, rivers swollen with meltwater. Flowers dotted the grass in soft bursts of color. Lila walked down the familiar path with a ranger escort. She saw them before they saw her. The cub, bigger now, stronger, sniffed the air and let out a low rumble. Then it ran. Straight toward her. She didn't flinch. It stood on its hind legs, taller than she remembered, and gently rested one paw on her shoulder, nose brushing her forehead, just like that day in the fire, just like it remembered. The clearing trembled with a sudden, deafening explosion. A fireball erupted behind the supply tent, sending a shockwave through the trees. The impact hurled pine needles and shards of metal in all directions. One of the biker's gas canisters, left too close to a live fire, had finally combusted. The flames leapt to a dry spruce tree in an instant. It caught like paper, crackling with fury as smoke billowed upward into the thickening sky. Panic tore through the clearing. The chained bear cub yelped in terror. The mother bear reared back, roaring at the sky, her instincts screaming to run. But her cub was still trapped. Bikers screamed. Some scrambled to grab gear, others fled, pushing each other as they stumbled through brush and smoke. And Rays ran straight for Lila. His eyes were bloodshot, wild. "You!" he roared, raising his bat high. But Lila didn't stop. Her hands were blistered, the old axe handle slick with sweat and sap as she hacked at the final link holding the cub in place. The chain groaned. Then, snap. The final shackle broke free. The cub staggered up, trembling, and limped toward the smoke-draped tree line, but then turned back, eyes searching for its mother. For Lila. Rays lunged, but something blocked him, a wall of fur and muscle. The mother bear charged between them, teeth bared, her growl deep and feral. Rays stumbled back, bat falling from his hand. But, instead of mauling him, the bear turned to Lila. The girl had collapsed to one knee, coughing violently, the smoke stealing her breath. The heat intensified. The fire crackled louder, racing toward them. Leaves curled. Flames licked up bark and ignited fallen logs. The bear looked at her, nostrils flaring, body tense. Flashback. In her mind, she heard it again. Her father's voice, calm and sure, that day by the lake as they watched a bear from afar. Bears don't forget, especially kindness. "But do they forgive?" she'd asked. He smiled. "Sometimes, when it matters." The cub whimpered. The mother bear leaned forward and nudged Lila with her massive snout. Not roughly, not to move her, but like... She understood. Lila's fingers slipped from the axe. Her body tilted. Then something unthinkable happened. The bear gripped her coat gently in her jaws and lifted the girl off the ground. Lila's limbs dangled limply, eyes barely open as the bear turned from the fire and began to move. One biker, hidden behind a fallen log, watched it all unfold. Marcus, the youngest of the group. He had stayed when the others ran, frozen not in fear, but in awe. His phone, half forgotten in his jacket, was now recording. Shaking, he whispered, She's helping her." Smoke swirled. The trees blurred. The bear padded across the clearing, past the last smoldering fire pit, her cub trailing weakly behind. Cut to darkness. A breeze. Leaves rustling. Lila's eyes fluttered open. She was lying on soft moss, wrapped in warm, pungent air. The forest canopy above her shimmered with moonlight. Embers glowed dimly in the distance, but here it was safe. She turned her head slowly and saw them. The mother bear sitting just feet away, watching, guarding, and beside her, curled up and asleep, the cub, free at last. Lila blinked, struggling to understand what had happened. Her chest ached, her hair was tangled, her face was streaked with ash. But she was alive. Not just alive, protected. She sat up. The bear grunted softly. It didn't move to stop her. For a long moment they stared at each other. No words, no sound but the wind. Then the bear turned away and walked back into the trees. It took Lila hours to get home. Her legs felt like rubber. Her hands were scraped, arms covered in soot. Twigs caught in her hair. Her jeans were torn, boots half melted at the soles. But the camera trap, the one she'd activated, was still secured in her backpack. The house appeared like a mirage through the trees. Lights blazed. Her grandmother burst onto the porch the second she saw her. "Lila!" she screamed. "Oh my God! Lila!" Lila collapsed into her arms, too exhausted to speak. Her grandmother pulled her inside, checking her for burns, for broken bones, for any explanation. But all Lila could do was whisper, "The bears! I saved the bear!" "What bear?" "The camera. Look at the camera." The footage was grainy, but it showed everything. Bikers shouting, laughing, chaining the cub to the stump. Lila stepping into the frame. Rays threatening her. Then, the mother bear's arrival. Smoke. Fire. Rays lunging. The chain breaking. The mother bear lifting Lila and carrying her out of the inferno like she was one of her own. Her grandmother stared at the screen, jaw slack. 2 hours later, the living room was full of authorities. Sheriff Donnelly, a local ranger named Carla who had seen every forest incident in the county for 20 years, and didn't believe most of them. "You're telling me a bear carried your granddaughter away from a fire without harming her?" Carla asked, arms crossed. Lila just nodded, her voice soft. "She remembered me. I fed her once, with my dad." The ranger frowned. Then the camera footage played again, and again. Carla leaned closer, hands on her knees. Then the knock came at the door. Marcus, still smelling of smoke, still shaken. He'd walked all the way from the forest road. "I saw it," he said. "I recorded some too. Ray's. He lost it. I didn't think it'd go that far." He pulled out his phone. Another video. The fire. The cub. Ray's screaming threats. Lila collapsing. The bear saving her. The ranger didn't speak for a long time. Then she straightened. "We're launching a full investigation." The forest clearing fell into stunned silence. 8-year-old Lila stepped from the shadows, tiny against the towering pines, but unshaken. Her knees wobbled slightly, yet her eyes held a quiet, defiant fire. The girl in the faded red hoodie didn't flinch as a circle of leather-clad bikers turned toward her, their laughter fading into disbelief. "What's a little girl doing out here?" one jeered, tipping his helmet back. "Looking for her teddy?" Another snorted. "Hope you brought cookies and milk for the bear." Lila didn't blink. Her gaze was locked on the chained cub, curled up and whimpering beside a rusted oil drum. Its fur was matted with dirt and grease, its eyes dim with fear. Her small voice rose above the mockery, trembling but firm. "Let him go. He didn't hurt anyone." The tension cracked like ice underfoot. Rays, the ringleader, slowly dismounted his motorcycle. The thick muscles in his arms flexed beneath a tattered vest covered in skull patches. He stalked toward her, boots crushing pine cones and broken beer bottles, his face twisted with amused disbelief. "You serious, kid?" She nodded once, fists clenched at her sides. Rays circled her like a predator, amused but increasingly irritated. His presence loomed, but Lila didn't step back. Her heartbeat pounded like a drum, but she stayed put. A few younger bikers exchanged uneasy glances. They hadn't come here to hurt children. This was supposed to be a party, a joke. One of them muttered, "She's just a kid, man." "Let it go." Rays shot him a glare that shut him up instantly. Then he turned back to Lila, his voice low and taunting. "You know what happens to little girls who stick their noses where they don't belong?" She didn't answer. She was frozen in place, but inside her mind, memories began to swirl. Flashback. The sound of water rushing over rocks. Her father's voice, calm and steady. A younger Lila, maybe 5, clutching his hand as they approached an injured wolf pup caught in a hunter's wire trap. Her father knelt, speaking softly to the frightened animal, showing her how to stay still, how to lower her voice. "Fear makes them dangerous," he'd said, "but compassion gives them a reason not to be." They had freed the pup. It hadn't bitten. It had limped off with a look in its eyes Lila never forgot. Back in the clearing, Rays leaned in close. "You've got 5 seconds to walk away before you're the one tied to that stump." His words were ice on her skin, but something in her chest, something fierce, held fast. A biker near the back, maybe 18 or 19, stepped forward hesitantly. "Rays, man, this ain't right. We're going too far." Rays spun around and backhanded him across the face. The biker stumbled, blood dripping from his nose. "Shut your mouth," Reyes growled. "I said we don't walk away until I say we walk." Lila didn't budge. Then she did something that none of them expected. She whistled, a sharp, high note that pierced the air like a hawk's cry. Every head turned. Click. A faint sound came from the woods, barely audible over the hum of idling engines and rustling leaves. But Lila knew what it meant. Her father's old camera trap, the one mounted to the highest branch of the twisted maple just outside the clearing, was still functional. It had just activated, triggered by motion and sound. She had stumbled upon it days ago and reset it out of curiosity. Now it was capturing everything. Reyes narrowed his eyes. "What the hell was that?" Lila said nothing. He moved toward her, this time with real menace. One hand reached for her hoodie, and then a growl. Low, deep, ancient. It rolled through the clearing like a wave, silencing even the wind. From the forest's edge emerged a massive silhouette black against the green. The shape moved forward, and outstepped a full-grown mother bear, her head low, her breath visible in the cooling air. The clearing erupted into chaos. "Run!" someone screamed. Bikes roared to life. Boots pounded the earth. Bottles shattered as men tripped over tents and tarps. One biker launched himself onto his motorcycle and peeled off into the woods. Another ditched his gear and ran into the underbrush, slipping on wet leaves. Reyes stood his ground, but his face had gone pale. He picked up a wooden bat from the ground, gripping it like a lifeline. Lila turned, now standing between him and the approaching bear. "Don't," she said. "Move," he barked. "No." The mother bear paused. Her eyes flicked to the girl, then to the cub. She growled again, but took no further steps. Her breathing was heavy, her massive frame tense, but her eyes weren't locked on Reyes. They were on Lila. Recognition flickered. The bear tilted her head. Memories stirred. Years ago, Lila and her father had found a mother bear and her cubs near the berry grove. Her father had left berries near the den. Lila had gently scattered a handful nearby, watching from a distance as the bear cautiously accepted the gift. It had been a moment of quiet peace in a wild world. That moment had returned. Now, the same mother bear looked at Lila and saw not a threat, but a memory. She grunted once and took a slow step forward. The cub responded with a weak cry, barely lifting its head. Lila's eyes darted to the stump. The chain. She turned and sprinted toward it, her breath catching in her throat. There, half buried under a tarp near the biker's supply pile, was a rusted axe. The handle was cracked, but the blade still had weight. She heaved it up, dragging it with both hands, and dropped beside the chain. The bear watched. Lila raised the axe. Clang. It hit, rebounded. Sparks danced in the dust. Again. Clang. The metal shrieked, flaked with rust. Behind her, Reyes took a hesitant step forward, bat still raised, but the mother bear growled, a warning that stopped him cold. Lila struck again. Clang. Crack. The chain fractured. One final swing, and the rusted link snapped. The cub flinched, then dragged itself backward, eyes wide, slowly crawling toward the trees. The mother moved aside, clearing the path. Lila dropped the axe. Sweat rolled down her face. Her arms shook with exhaustion. She turned just in time to see the cub nestle against its mother's side. The massive bear touched its nose to the cub's head, then lifted its eyes once more. To Lila. A moment passed. A breath shared. Then the bear turned and led her cub into the woods. The clearing was silent again. Only Reyes remained, standing rigid, breathing hard, eyes burning with a mix of fear and fury. Lila stepped back, no longer trembling, her face smudged with dirt, her voice steady. "It's over." But it wasn't. Not yet. The forest had taken its side. And Reyes, he wasn't done.